Good afternoon. Thanks for joining me for today's devotional. The title today is Why God Deceives the Prophets. The primary verse is Ezekiel 14:9, with the secondary passage being 1 Kings 22:19 through 23. So Ezekiel 14:9 reads, And if the prophet be deceived when he hath spoken a thing, I, the Lord, have deceived that prophet, and I will stretch out my hand upon him, and I will destroy him from the midst of my people Israel. And the commentary reads, God does not rage like a tyrant, but exercises just judgment. Also, no deceptions of doctrine are allowed without God's permission. This seems at first absurd, for God seems to battle himself when he gives freedom to Satan to pervert sound doctrine. If this perversion happens by God's authority, it seems completely contradictory. But let us always remember that God's judgments are not without reason, called a profound abyss, from Psalm 36:6. When we see rebellious men acting as they do, we should not expect to understand what far surpasses even the understanding of angels. Therefore, we must soberly and reverently regard God's works, especially his secret counsels. With the aid of reverence and modesty, it will be easy to reconcile these two things, that God gives birth to and cherishes and defends his church and confirms the teaching of his prophets, while at the same time he permits it to be torn and distracted by dissension. God acts this way to punish the wickedness of men as often as he pleases when he sees them abuse his goodness and indulgence. When God lights up the flame of his doctrine, it is the sign of his inestimable pity. When he allows the church to be disturbed and men to be in some degree dissipated, that should be imputed to the wickedness of men. Whatever the explanation may be, God says that he himself deceived the false prophets, for Satan could not utter a single word unless God permitted him to do so. God not only permitted, but ordered Satan to do so to exercise his wrath against the wicked. And so, our application for meditation today: it is difficult to understand why God allows Satan freedom to rage within the church through perversions of doctrine. Nevertheless, we can take comfort in knowing that all the storms that rage are under God's control. Satan will never completely overwhelm the church or defeat God's purposes. And so our secondary passage today, 1 Kings 22:19 through 23 reads, And Micah said, Therefore hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the hosts of heaven standing beside him on his right hand and on his left. And the Lord said, Who will entice Ahab, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said one thing, and another said another. Then a spirit came forward and stood before the Lord, saying, I will entice him. And the Lord said to him, By what means? And he said, I will go out and will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, You are to entice him, and you shall succeed. Go out and do so. Now therefore, behold, the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these your prophets. The Lord has declared disaster for you. And so again, our application for meditation today: it is difficult to understand why God allows Satan freedom to rage within the church through perversions of doctrine. Nevertheless, we can take comfort in knowing that all the storms that rage are under God's control. Satan will never completely overwhelm the church or defeat God's purposes. Amen. Something to ponder today. Thank you for joining me for today's devotional, and have a great day.